Well, hi to everyone watching this video. Really excited to talk to you guys today about some career tips for those of you who are graduating soon. I'm assuming probably in a year from your graduate programs. We are sorry that you didn't get to participate in your ACUHO-i internship in person this summer. Obviously, it's been a crazy time, but we'll start out just introducing ourselves. So my name is S.K. Parker, and I'm an assistant director of career services here at the University of Richmond, and I specialize in marketing communications, fine arts, and entrepreneurship and innovation. I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine Hunter. I'm also an assistant director at the University of Richmond Career Services Office. My focus area is more so on early engagement and career exploration. So I more so partner with a lot of our campus partners to engage our first years and our sophomores. And to also engage students who maybe don't really know what they want to do or who are undecided about majors. So that's kind of the bread and butter of what I do. I also manage our peer advisors in our office. So we have a group of 7 students who work in our office. So I manage them, and which is a whole lot of fun.
We wanted to share a little bit with you all about, where we came from and kind of our paths to our current jobs, which is really different for both Jasmine and myself. So I did my undergraduate degree in journalism and electronic media with an emphasis in print communications design from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. And then I did my master's of arts and college student development from Appalachian State University. It was an interesting journey to student affairs. So I actually thought I wanted to be a professor of art. So I have a third of a master's of fine arts from the University of Memphis, where I was a teaching assistant and the graphic designer for the Art Museum of Memphis. And I realized that was not the path that I wanted to take. And someone that I was dating at the time actually said, you should be a career counselor. So I Googled how to be a college career counselor, and that's kind of how I fell into student affairs. Interestingly enough, when I was at Appalachian State, I was a graduate assistant in the Center for Student Involvement and Leadership, and did a lot of first year retention programming and leadership programs, and helped with student activities, student government association, and then newspaper. I've also worked at Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon, in outdoor programming, and I did 3 years in residential life, 1 at Appalachian State and 2 at the University of New Hampshire, before coming to the University of Richmond to finally work in career services. I don't know, Jasmine, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. It's funny. I didn't even know that someone suggested you be a career advisor. That's so funny. Like that person like deserves an award. Like they predicted your future. That's so they should be a career advisor, honestly. So my background is a little bit different. I feel like I've been in career services my entire life. so it's funny. It's actually kind of ironic that I supervise our peer advisors because I actually started my journey into this space as a peer advisor at George Mason University's Career Services. So I did my undergraduate career at George Mason University. I studied communication with a concentration in public relations and a minor in psychology. And I was one of those undecided students. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I ended up declaring my major probably end of my sophomore year. I just chose something kind of. But also in my sophomore year, I like just stumbled into career services, and I was just kind of like, I need a job. I was used to working. I always like had like cool part-time jobs and stuff. So I was just like used to working, but I was like, kind of want to work on campus. So I just stumbled into career services, and I was like being my chit-chatty self and just like chatting with people. And then I learned that they were developing this peer advisor program, and I was like, oh, cool. I don't really know what that is, but sign me up. And so pretty much like one of the front desk worker, she passed my name along to the advisor who would be managing the peer advisor program, and pretty much just like spoke highly of me. It was like, she's great. I was like, I didn't think I was that great. Honestly, I probably had just like rolled out of bed or something. But she passed my name on because she thought I was great. And then I got an interview, was not qualified for the role, had no idea what a resume was. I had probably never, I think I might have created a high school resume, but I didn't know what a resume was, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I didn't know anything about career. Like, I just honestly was not qualified for this role. But I was hired for it. And and the advisor who hired me like just saw a lot of potential in me, and so she was like, "You're hired." And so started that my sophomore year, and I stayed in that role until I graduated, and I loved it. Like, I took that role so seriously, and I like I just remember like just going to all the presentations and like just feeling like this like person who had all this career knowledge, and I loved it. Like, I loved like just knowing how to get a job. And so I would like help my friends, and I just felt like so powerful. I was also president of Fashion Society, and I used to work with career services, and actually as a student leader organized like this career track to New York, and it was just so much fun. So again, first steps into career services, didn't think that this was what I wanted to do, but I loved it so much. I actually wanted to go into retail. So I had multiple internships, one at Macy's, one at Nordstrom. But I decided, like, after my internships, I decided that I liked getting the job more than I liked the job. So I was like, I need to get back in career services. So after graduating, I found myself at the University of Virginia, where I was working as an employee relations assistant. And that was cool, but I was like, I want to do more. So I decided to go to grad school, which 9 months after starting that position, matriculated into graduate school at UVA. Worked for a year, I was in grad school for a year, served as a graduate intern in career services for that year. And then I was hired as a career advisor after graduating. And that was just a great moment for me. I was learning so much. And in my first role, I did start off in the kind of a similar role that I'm in now in career exploration, just learning so much and just like learning so much from the students and learning so much about student affairs. And at UVA during that time, a lot was going on. In Charlottesville, a lot was going on. And so I was there. So I witnessed all of that. And so I think that shifted a lot of what I thought about higher education and what I thought my purpose was in higher education. So after serving in that role for I think 3 years, I made the trip to UofR, where I am now. My now husband and I decided that Richmond was the place that we wanted to be, and so that's how I landed here. And I've been here, is it 2 years? I think 2 years now, and have loved it. Working again in the similar capacity, career exploration, early engagement, that kind of thing. That's my journey. Again, been in career services my entire life.
That was awesome. Thanks, Jasmine. I really liked when you said I like getting the job more than I liked having the job.
That was the thing. It was crazy. It was so crazy. That's how I knew.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Well, we hope that by watching this video, you get a couple of tips and maybe some encouragement on having an enjoyable job search, but also finding the jobs that you love. We did want to, before we kind of jumped into some of the things that we were going to share with you all today, just recognize that we're in a really uncertain time for all industries, but also for higher education, which tends to be a normally stable industry. But I'm sure, just as you all are on pins and needles to see if your college will return in the fall, we are kind of also in that space, and then just seeing kind of how COVID-19 will change the face of higher education. Some things that have been on my mind, at least, are just university closures. We know that there will be significant revenue loss for many universities who cannot return in the fall if that ends up happening. There's already been, I think some talk about budgeting across the nation, with refunds for tuition and or room and board. So this is really changing the face of our industry, which I don't think has been that kind of vulnerable in the past to recession issues. So this is really unprecedented, and I can imagine that it'd be really kind of somewhat scary time to be looking for a position at the graduate school and to be a student. Just knowing if your classes are going to be in person, if you'll be able to do your practicum or assistantship or kind of whatever you're working on. I know there's been a lot of flexibility that you've had to deal with, and while I wish I could say that you wouldn't necessarily face that in the job search moving forward, it's probably a reality that we all, need to kind of understand and move forward with. So just wanted to kind of call out some of those things that this will be different, I think, than other classes, graduate classes felt, and undergraduate classes, and we definitely want you to be as prepared as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely ditto, everything that SK said. I think I know this is like a thing that we're all saying, but this is certainly an unprecedented time and very uncertain. But I think that coming out of this, I think is something that this is what I've been telling students. We have to think about, what is your story, right? And like, how will you talk about how you dealt with the ambiguity and the uncertainty that accompanied this experience. And so that leads us into kind of the first topic that we wanted to talk to you guys about, and that's resumes, cover letters, and interviews. Obviously, all probably are readying yourself or preparing yourself by developing those career documents or thinking about that interview process. Pretty sure, through undergrad or through your grad program, you may have had some, training or education around resumes. So I'll spare you, the little like nitty gritty details around resumes and cover letters. Even that stuff, like there are plenty of resources for you. But I want to touch on like the more high level things that most, when I'm in a search committee or when my colleagues are in a search committee, the things that we look for in a resume, obviously great format, right? Like we all know that, right? Your resume should be free of grammatical errors, good format, like no spelling mistakes, stuff like that. Again, I'll spare you all those nitty gritty things. But I think the biggest thing, especially during this time, is you having a thorough understanding of yourself and of the role that you are applying to. I can literally tell you how many times, I have thrown out a resume because it's obvious that the person, they're not connecting what their experience is with what they're applying for. It's obvious. Like anyone who works in higher education who has looked at a resume, it's obvious when you're not being thoughtful around what your experience is and how it connects to the position. I think, especially in times like this, when we are looking for people who do stand out, right, and do have qualities that that other people may not have, it's important for you to be reflective and for that to show on your resume, whether it be through your bullet points, whether it be even through your cover letter. I think that kind of is you being able to best articulate yourself on your resume or your cover letter goes to you having a thorough understanding of the job and of the school as well. And so, I'm just going to reference the two schools that I've been a part of. So UVA and the University of Richmond are two different institutions. Like, I don't think, honestly, when I applied for my role, I don't think I knew how different they were. But like now, after like 2 years, I understand the nuances, like the subtle differences between the two institutions. And so I'm like, oh, did I like assume things? Like, I don't even know how I came off in my interview. So I think that's something to be super cognizant of. Essay's going to talk about networking a little bit later, but be sure that you are reaching out and connecting to your network and reading the university's website and reading the reading what's going on, like just looking at the website, looking at the programs, looking at the resources to understand kind of the culture of that university or of that institution, so that you're not assuming things or assuming that, oh, we did it at this previous institution or wherever I did my internship, so that's how they do it there. Because more than likely it's not how they do it there. And so you don't want to get caught up in that trap. Little things like how you write things on your resume, how you refer to the first year engagement or the first year seminars, or how you refer to the living learning communities or housing and residence life, how you refer to those things matter. And so I think that that's like one of the biggest things, like thorough understanding of yourself and also a thorough understanding of the institution in which you're applying for. I think a little research goes a long way. And so the second big point I want to hit on are your skills. So obviously you're engaging in, a wonderful graduate program now where you are learning and developing a lot of skills and knowledge. And so you want to be sure that you are articulating those, throughout your resume, throughout your cover letter, effectively, by showing, what is the impact of what you've done, right? And so, yeah, a lot of people have like managed a bunch of RAs, right? Or a lot of people have, a lot of students in our area, or a lot of professionals, I guess, in our area have, looked at a bunch of resumes. But what have you done that has been impactful to the university, to your department, to the schools? What change have you made? And not just like, what have you done? A lot of people have done that. There are a lot of people who work in our area, so a lot of people have done the things that you probably have done, but think about it as more how you have impacted and how you've like shifted. And that, I think, makes me think about skills of the future. So when I think about skills of the future, I think about, if, something, I hope not, but if we experience another pandemic where we have to be virtually, or if we experience some other thing that like just shifts higher education, because I do believe this may shift higher education, what does that look like for your skills, right? How do your skills lend well to the future of what higher education looks like? All right. And so again, that's more than just, hey, I managed all these RAs. It's, all right, how did I manage communications to parents? How did I, make all this stuff happen? How did I work in a very ambiguous environment? How was I agile when I had to move really fast, right? And so those are the things that you would want to focus on. It's not just I manage these RAs, right? It's I made something happen, right? And I was impactful. Other skills that I think about, just engaging students like outside of the normal like engagement style. So outside of the one-on-one, like how else have you reached and engaged students, right? What are the creative ways that you've reached and engaged students? How have I been involved in contingency planning and planning for the future? How have I been a great communicator and a great organizer, right? And again, an impactful communicator, an impactful organizer, right? So those are some of the things that I think about when I think about like what you can do on your resume and in your cover letter and in your interview to stand out, right? It's like, how can I be better than basic, right? Like there's some basic things that a lot of students in these graduate programs are coming out of the programs with, right? But how can I demonstrate that I went above and beyond that? And so the last point that I want to touch on regarding resumes, cover letters, and interviewing is to outline your transferable skills. So SK, again, we'll talk a little bit more about this, and she's experienced that, and she's been able to like navigate, pivoting to different functional areas. But I think that it's definitely possible. It's going to be about like understanding, again, the department or the office and the different institutions, and understanding how your role impacts or can work with that office, and how those skills kind of connect. And again, I think, the thing that helps you to do that the best is having that thorough understanding and doing that research, and to be able to, figure out creative ways to outline some of the things you've done maybe on your resume or in your cover letter that may connect with that organization. So again, I wanted to spare you guys the nitty gritty details of resumes. I'm sure you can Google how to write a resume, but when you think about how to stand out in your resume, cover letters, interviews, I think, having a great format, obviously, having a thorough understanding of yourself, thorough understanding of the job and of the institution, also thinking about, the skills, the hard skills, right? Not just, the basic skills, but the hard skills that you're developing that show that you have had an impact, and then understanding your transferable skills. Those are the things that you're going to want to think about when you're developing those application documents and going in for interviews. SK, is there anything else that you would add, just from your perspective, like how students should be thinking about resumes, cover letters, and interviewing?
Yeah, I think something that you said that I really believe in is the cover letter. I can't tell you how many cover letters that I've read that were probably amazing candidates that never got chosen because their letter was like a basic form letter and it said nothing about the university or the role. And it just wasn't like, there was no spark there. I mean, you're fighting 115 applicants. You really get one read, right? And so when you can share information about the position and the school or the department or the office that's very intentional and thoughtful, like immediate move that letter to keep pile, because I definitely want to spend more time kind of exploring your background and who you are. And I think as far as the resume goes, like Jasmine was saying, really using those keywords, but like use your job description. Like people write those on purpose. So use the verbiage that they're talking about if it's relevant to your work, and try to make connections as much as you can. And so, supervision of peer advisors in the career services office is one of them, and you supervise RAs. How is that similar? Are you working in a residential curriculum model that might have, touched on a functional area that you're interested in going into? Put your relevant coursework. All of us have different programs. Jasmine's program didn't look at anything like mine, and we had very different experiences. And so really being able to talk about what makes you unique is important. And I'll say, like, by the way, Jasmine did a wonderful job in her interview. But one of the things I think got me noticed was I did the Camino in the summer of 2016. So it's a 500-mile trail across Spain. And then I actually presented at ACUHO-i about how it made me a better student affairs professional. And that came up in almost every single interview I did because it was something unique to me that I was able to tie back to the field. So if you have something like that, not necessarily walking across the country, but something that really makes you stand out and you can use it in your practice, which I think there's plenty of things that we do day to day that make me a better student affairs professional, like being able to utilize that in your documentation, again, just makes you stand out from the crowd. Cool. So I'm going to jump into networking a little bit. I think, relationship building is key for any job search. You always hear that it's who you know, that cliche thing, but it's true. And I think it's going to be even more true in the future. And as we move forward, I do think that most student affairs job searches are as equitable as they can be, and people are really trying to make sure that everybody has an equal shot at success. So like, I don't know if you can really rate it one way or another, but I do think that, it does say something when someone calls an office or comes from an informational interview or wants to engage with the professionals there and grow that relationship and learn things about the office. So I'm really going to kind of push relationship building as your key to success in this next year. So first, I want to back up a little bit and talk about values. So I was actually able to attend this conference last year, and a lot of questions kind of came up about location and type of institution and that type of thing. So I didn't spend a lot of time on this in grad school at all. I did not think about, Jasmine was talking about the difference between UVA and UR. I also didn't really have a huge grasp on a private liberal arts school. I went to large and mid-sized publics my whole career, and so I wasn't used to kind of the difference in the institution, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been a totally different challenge. I also had never lived in Virginia before. I'd only been to Richmond one time, actually in grad school for a conference at the University of Richmond. I had forgot I'd even been there. Just funny. So, you might spend some time really thinking about what different types of institutions look like, and then also the health of the institution. I think that it's always wise to think about where your institution is financially. I think it's even better now to think, how financially healthy is this institution, and how are they kind of mitigating what's happening in the industry at the time. If you're going to apply to a job there, especially if it's kind of small and far away, if it closes or shuts down or has layoffs or furloughs, that could be a lot of work for you to move and find a new position. So just something to kind of think about. Location is super important. So I know a lot of people have significant others that they want to live near. Maybe they want to be closer to family. Maybe you want to live in a part of the country you've never seen. That's what New Hampshire was for me. I've never been in New England before. I thought, let's go for it. Res life or not. So, talked a lot about starting kind of res life and moving on, or maybe that's a goal of yours in the future. So kind of figuring out, like, am I going to a town that I want to stay in long term? Do I see myself somewhere else? Do I want to be at an institution that has a lot of other opportunities? So I would say, when I look at the University of Richmond versus VCU obviously has a significant amount more employees, and so there might have been more opportunity to jump around at that institution than you are. So if I think Richmond versus Boston, you're going to have a lot more colleges and universities in Boston than you do in Richmond. So maybe that makes more sense for you in the long term. I also would think about your long and short term career and educational goals. So if a PhD is in your future, maybe thinking about a school that has a doctoral program that you can enroll in, thinking about benefits. I know for my res lifers, or just my res life right now people, things that are important are, benefits like duty rotation. Like, do you want to be on a duty rotation with 3 other people and be on every single month, or do you want to be on a team with 25 people and on occasion? Dual roles. So smaller schools, sometimes you'll actually have a liaison position where you're working in conduct, orientation, or some other type of role. So if you're looking for a transition later to be in a different functional area, it might be something to kind of keep in mind. And those are all really important pieces, like as you're kind of developing what your value system is and then starting your networking. So when you've kind of pinpointed that area of the country, that type of institution, or that specific role, I think then it's time to really start doing informational interviews, participating in professional organization events. For all of you, obviously ACUHO-i, they're regional housing officers, organizations that have their own hiring events, their own meetings, their own things like that. So if you're, maybe you're writing research or you're publishing articles for your school, getting that stuff out there, getting your name out there, having Zoom and Skype, coffee dates with people. If the world changes a little bit and you can do it in person, and you have the funding to kind of go and visit a city with campuses you're interested in, call that office. We've definitely hosted people from other schools in our career office and let them shadow for a day or two and see kind of how we run. So definitely think about kind of doing those things. I feel really strongly that the first touch point you have with an office shouldn't be your application materials. And I would let that kind of be the motto for you as you move forward, into your job search. I know some of you might be thinking about the placement exchange if it happens. I know that's where I got my job at the University of New Hampshire. It's a very overwhelming event. I think I interviewed with like 37 schools, which if I had a chance now, probably would have been way more intentional about that interview process. But again, I'm really thinking about, does this fit my needs, and spending more time kind of getting into the depth of that interview process than widespread throwing out your application materials everywhere. I think that tends to be, people panic. They're like, I'm just going to apply for every single thing. And I think it's better to spend a little bit more time on one really great application. So those are kind of my pieces for networking. So relationship building, professional organizations and associations. Also, don't forget about the people who are working at your institution. So, student affairs is not a huge it's not a huge field. It feels kind of big sometimes, but a lot of people are interconnected, maybe by one or two colleagues, and they can introduce you to a lot of wonderful people. So people within your office, if you're looking to transition out of res life, then, go talk to the career services office at your institution, or the orientation office, or academic advising, or kind of wherever you see yourself. Not only can they give you some great information about how to prepare for interviews, but also like what trends are going on in their space, questions they might ask people for interviews in their own office, and really help you prepare to be successful as you move into kind of the application and interviewing process for yourself. So those are all kind of my suggestions for networking. Jasmine, do you have additions?
Yeah, no, I think you hit everything that I would have said. I think I want to like ditto, like at the institution where you are now, whether you are interning or where you are, be sure to like reach out to other functional areas. And most people are open to like having those conversations, but I think that's like the people where you are right now are so important. I think so many people like don't consider, like the people where they are. And so I think leveraging that as much as possible, although we're, in a pandemic and we can't like travel to this wonderful conference, like the people in your back door, right, are the people who, can, connect you with other people and extend your network beyond what you have now. So, yeah, so don't, forget about the people in your back door. And I think leveraging those folks as much as possible. So yeah, so just to kind of close, we hope this was helpful. Obviously, there's so much more that we can talk about in regards to cover letters, resumes, interviews, networking. Like we could literally talk days and days and days about this. So I think SK, both of us are open to sharing our contact information, and we'll make sure with our presentation, you guys will have our contact information. So if you would like to reach out to us, we'd be open to like scheduling an informational interview. So we've talked all about informational interviews, but we'd be happy to schedule an informational interview to talk about just, working in career services, or like navigating, like moving from res life to career services, or, whatever it may be. Like we're open to like having that conversation with you, just because we know how things are at this moment, and we want to be that resource for you. So I think that's it. Do you have anything else to add, SK? Or
Yeah, I'll give one plug to career services around the country. So unlike Jasmine, I did not take advantage of career services at all in undergrad or in grad school, and it makes me laugh that it is now my job. But if you have, so at UofR, we actually offer career services for the life of our graduates, so they're welcome to use this as alumni. So I would check in with your undergraduate institution or utilize your graduate institution for career services, even if it's just like another set of eyes on your resume. It's so funny that like it didn't even come into my mind. I knew my grad student friends who worked in career services, but I guess I just didn't think it was for me. I don't know. But I would definitely like utilize those resources, for sure. Even if you just need to freak out about the job search for a minute, like everyone's ready to be there and listen to you. But yeah, we really hope that this was helpful, and we wish you all the best of luck,
definitely
here and all the things coming your way.
Definitely. Best of luck, and feel free to reach out. Thank you guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.